Nigel Farage has called Conservative MPs delusional if they believe that Reform UK voters will return to them, saying the Tory brand is broken and his party is here to stay.
But this comes as a survey reveals more voters now think Farage has got what it takes to be a good Prime Minister over any of the Conservative leadership contenders.
Reform UK leader Nigel Farage joins us now. I don't know whether...
Good morning.
I know a year ago you were kind of at the Tory party conference. I don't know whether you've come hot foot from Birmingham. We were hearing from Andrew and Kevin earlier that Reform is dominating the Conservative Party candidate. They're all waiting to know, is there going to be a deal between the new leadership contender when they get elected and your party? Were you there?
No, it's funny, isn't it? You know, if talk of Reform and myself is dominating, I'm not there. Look, they are desperately looking for someone to blame for the massive election loss they've just been through. So let's go for Nigel Farage. Let's not identify ourselves with the fact that in 2010, 2015, 2017, 2019, we made a series of promises to voters and let them down every single time. And I think that, the real point I'm making here is all four of them that are putting themselves forward, and they'll speak today in the conference hall to be the next Tory leader, they all think, with a new leader, it'll all be fine, all the voters will come back to us, and what they don't understand is the Conservative brand is completely damaged. They have no chance of winning the next election.
They wanted to blame you, or do they want to jump into bed with you? I thought Mr Jenrick is kind of keen for you, to cuddle up.
Well, he's less rude about me than the other three. I mean, that is true. No, there will be no deal with them. I wouldn't trust them anyway. They have a pattern of behaviour, pretending to be one thing, and then when they're in government, being quite the opposite. And frankly, what I'm trying to do with Reform is to replace them.
It was a Conservative government that triggered the referendum on Brexit. It was a Conservative government that saw Brexit happen, and it was a Conservative Prime Minister who got Brexit done. So you're very critical of the government that actually did what you have been campaigning for your entire life.
None of those things would have happened without me. None of them. The only reason we got the referendum...
That you personally?
Well, I had a lot of people that helped me over the years, but I was the figurehead.
But without me?
Well, I'm sorry, but that's just the truth of it.
OK.
I led UKIP. I took it from being nothing to being a major national force. Cameron promised the referendum to try and sort of shoot the UKIP fox, as it were. And then when they had the chance after Brexit to do something with it, they did nothing. I came back into politics, got rid of Mrs May in the European elections, and Boris became leader. So, yeah, I mean, I've had to push them and kick them into this all the way through. And I now feel...
Are you proud of Brexit? Do you feel like it's been an unalloyed success?
Do I think getting back our independence was the right thing to do? You bet your life. Do I think we've handled it well? Good Lord, no.
Which part of our independence are we exploiting to our best advantage?
The point about independence is we're in charge. So we can get things right, we can get things wrong. As it happens,
what have we got right?
What have we got right?
Yeah, in your view.
I think on the international stage we stand a lot taller with Brexit than we did before. I think things like the AUKUS deal, the nuclear submarine deal with Australia, is something we couldn't have done as a European Union member.
Do you think as a regular voter, you feel that the AUKUS deal has affected your daily life?
If I lived in Barrow-in-Furness and I was working in the submarines, yes, I would, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, I would do.
Most of our viewers don't, but you would if you lived in
Barrow.
No,
I completely... Look, I am probably more annoyed with the way Brexit's been delivered than anybody, because so many of the things that we could have done, we simply haven't. And the big one is people voted Brexit, above all, because they did not like the rate of the population explosion that we had with open borders.
Which has got bigger since...
And it's got bigger. It's got bigger. And we're in charge of that, and the Conservative Party they're the ones that did this. It wasn't necessary. We now learn that mass immigration is making us poorer as well. So, I'm disappointed, but we are freed and we're running our own lives.
I just want to talk about the immigration issue, because you really make it front and centre of everything that you do. I mean, in the area where I live, actually, the birth rate is going down. We don't have a population explosion and schools are closing. And also, the two biggest issues, cost of living and the NHS. We know that immigration is absolutely vital to our NHS.
No, it isn't. Far from it.
We're reliant on immigrant
far
doctors, nurses and NHS staff, and in social care as well.
Since Blair got in 1997, our population has risen by 10 million people. 10 million. An almost unthinkable number, given that from the war up until Blair winning, net migration had risen at 30,000 a year. You know, we've gone up to 750,000 a year, 300,000 a year during the Blair and Brown years. And basically
all of the increases have been faster since 2016.
They have been. Yes, they have been. And that was, you know, bad government policy from Johnson and from many others.
Can't blame Tony Blair for that one.
And no, Blair started a process that completely transformed what immigration into Britain had been for half a century.
That's right.
And the Tories have accelerated, and I accept that point absolutely. Here's the point. Most people that come into the country come on relatively low wages, pay very small amounts of tax, and overall are not benefiting the country financially. It's really interesting. The faster the rate of...
Sorry, why...
for the
you
last
can't blame them if they're on low wages for paying small amounts of tax.
No,
they'll pay tax in relation to their wages.
How do we pay for more GPs? How do we pay for more roads? How do we pay for all the things that we need?
Do you want to increase tax on those who come from overseas?
No, here is a fact.
Do you want to increase tax for those on low wages?
Hang on. The faster the population grows, the more we see a fall in living standards and wealth per head falling. And for the last 2.5 years, 7 consecutive quarters, we have seen average wealth for the individual fall as the population's exploded. This isn't working. And I'm not pointing the finger at any community.
Sorry, you are absolutely pointing the finger at immigrants. You can't deny that's the case.
I'm pointing the finger at government policy, which is flawed.
You could definitely point the finger at government policy, for example, on tax.
Yeah. Have you tried driving around the country lately?
Yes.
Have you tried getting a GP appointment?
Yes.
We literally have made, I think, a catastrophic mistake.
Almost 20% of our NHS came from overseas.
Yeah, and isn't that...
Thank goodness.
Isn't that awful?
Why is
Isn't that awful that we're not actually encouraging people, young men and young women, to go into nursing and many other things? Medical schools have had cap numbers.
Because you think that people who didn't come from overseas would make better GPs?
We have literally been capping the number of doctors we train and relying on taking doctors, often from very poor African countries, for example, where they're probably needed more than they are here. We should be ashamed of ourselves.
That's a completely different argument.
No,
yes, it is, because then you're saying you're actually doing the best for African countries which can't support their own health services. That's not your argument.
The fact we're taking talent from poor countries, we should not be proud of.
But you would agree that the social care system in the last 3 or 4 years would have collapsed if it wasn't for social care workers coming from around the world to work in Britain.
We keep making this argument year after year after year that we
But it would have done.
cope.
So what would you have done instead for social care?
Well, you know as well as I do that one of the massive problems we've got are the sheer number of people in Britain of working age that are not working. And one of the problems is social care, as we all know, which is a job, by the way, I wouldn't want to do, very difficult job to do, doesn't pay very much money. We have this terrible trap. And millions of people are caught where they're on benefits, but if they go to work for more than 16 hours a week, they lose the benefits. So they're better off not working than they are going back to work. And we have to find a radical way to get British people of working age back to work.
You've got to pay people in social care more.
I personally think what we need to do is to raise the level at which we all start paying tax to about £20,000 a year to incentivise people.
We discussed that in the election campaign, though. We had a bit of a clash about that because I pointed out to you that disproportionately helps the richest people, and it does. And the Institute of Fiscal Studies said I was right.
Do you know what matters? What matters is we have to find a way of getting people who are not working back to work. So
even if the rich benefit most from a Farage party?
Well, I tell you what, the rich are a separate argument because they're leaving in droves, as you know.
But the rich would benefit most from your tax
Let's not worry about the tiny number of people who are rich. Let's worry about the millions who are not working, who could be.
Can I talk to you about what happened in July, these riots that were triggered by the tragedy in Southport? You have been criticised by a number of people, including Conservative Party leadership candidate Tom Tugendhat, for being irresponsible and dangerous. And he accuses you of amplifying false information when you suggested that, in a video, by the way, that police withheld the truth about the person alleged to be behind this tragedy. Now, let's bear in mind there is a legal process going on. We don't want to compromise.
We always hide behind that, don't we?
That's the rule of law in this country.
Well, how interesting you say that.
That we don't compromise someone's fair trial.
So this is really interesting.
And allow the families of those who have suffered to hear the truth.
Yeah, and we hide behind this again and again and again.
Why are you saying hide behind?
I'll tell you why.
You are fully in support of the rule of law.
I'll tell you why.
And you know what contempt of court is.
This is very interesting, OK? The
Please don't veer into contempt of court.
No. I'm going to tell you what Lord
your
Carlisle...
claim that we're hiding behind the rule of law.
Lord Carlisle, Liberal Democrat peer, but a very senior legal man, along with Jonathan Hall KC, who is the government's terrorism czar, OK? So these are two very significant figures. Both publicly said 3 weeks ago that the government ought to have told people the truth, that in general, governments hide behind this idea that there's a legal process going on, therefore we can't give the public... You can shake your head. This is...
I'm absolutely shaking my head because you said...
Hang on.
You repeated misinformation.
Are you aware? Are you aware?
Was under surveillance.
Are either of you aware?
You asked whether
the terrorism
truth is being withheld from us.
Well, of course it's being withheld. Look what happened in Nottingham. A triple murderer. Callacane, a triple murderer. It took us a year to find out that a senior doctor had said, do not let this man out or he will kill.
You're conflating two entirely separate cases.
The public deserves...
That's not how the rule of law works.
Do you know what? The public deserve to know the truth, and both Lord Carlisle and...
The truth was that the suspect was not under surveillance. The truth was that the suspect had...
Do you know that?
Well, you don't know that he was under surveillance. You just raised this spurious question.
And why do you think the riots happened in the way that they did?
Well...
Because there was a vacuum. There was a vacuum. People were not being told the truth.
The speculation was, online, was that this was a migrant who had committed this crime.
So why not kill the rumours? Do you know what?
No, but you fed the rumours. You inflamed the rumours.
I said to the government...
You on social media gave the impression that there was truth behind the idea that this was in fact a migrant who'd done this, and it was untrue.
I was saying, tell the truth. Give the public information, and the problem will die down.
The thing is, now you're a member of Parliament.
Do you know
what's responsibility now? You can't just behave like some pundit on some TV show. You're a member of Parliament.
Neither of you knew.
You have to behave in a responsible way. If you give the impression to people that what's being hidden is this a migrant who is committing these crimes, you end up with riots in the streets and hotels being burned.
You can go on as long as you like. Neither of you knew, until I just said it, that the terrorism czar had backed up my words 100%. Did you?
No, I did know. I absolutely...
No, you didn't.
Sorry, we know that people thought...
You do not know.
Terrorism czar did not defend what you said in those days.
That perhaps more information should have come out earlier.
Absolutely did. And Lord Carlisle went further to say we must not hide behind the fact there are criminal proceedings from going on, and that must not stop us telling the public the truth.
The thing you were giving the impression was that it was a migrant, Nigel. No, that was untrue.
Ed, had the government and the police done what I'd asked, those riots would have been nothing like as bad.
Nigel Farage, I just think that with power comes responsibility.
Quite right.
And you cannot just, on camera, raise spurious questions which you know will inflame people.
Tell us the truth.
And then just...
How inflammatory is that?
We know as broadcasters, you can't just put false information out into the public knowing what happened.
Exactly.
You did.
No, but that's exactly what you did.
It was you doing it.
I'm sorry, guys.
It was you
You've got
doing
the wrong end of the stick. You're going along with a political narrative here. You are wrong.
Well, there we will have to leave it and agree to disagree.
In a friendly way.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much indeed.